Well, hello, my dear friends. Justyn Smith here with A Heart for Revival Ministries. My family and I love to travel across the country from church to church, seeking revival within the saints and the delivering of the gospel to those who need to hear that Jesus saves and gives everlasting life. Well, you're watching this video today because we are involved in a series, The Bible and Pornography. You don't have to be defeated. You must want victory more. You can have victory through Christ. This idea, and it's not just an idea, this thing of pornography is literally tearing apart people's lives. I mean, we're talking about wreaking havoc upon generations, and we want to see victory. We know there is victory through Christ. Faith is the victory that overcometh the world. With that understanding, I want to introduce the title, Eyes for One. Eyes for only one. Let thine eyes look right on is our little subtitle that we're giving to this particular message today, Eyes for One. Let me kind of give you an understanding of what I mean when I say eyes for one. We can really curve the pornography effect in our life by having eyes for only one, by really making a covenant with our eyes, saying, I am going to save my eyes for the right one, just like I want to save my life for the right one. I want to wait for the right one by being the right one today. And that is going to begin with what I look at, who I look at, and how I allow the look that I have towards somebody else to then become a response with my life. Now, there are three little verses in Proverbs chapter 4 that I want to introduce you to, beginning in verse number 25. So Proverbs chapter 4, verse 25 says, let thine eyes look right on. It does matter what you look at. And let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Verse 26, ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. Verse 27, turn not to the right hand, nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. Now, those verses are really wisdom principles, wisdom statements that begin with letting your eyes look rightly, letting your eyes look correctly in the right direction, in the right way, toward the right things, that you may then take a step in the right direction. Therefore, the title of today's video is Eyes for One, and I want to challenge you to have eyes for your spouse. Whether, again, you are looking toward whomever it is you are going to marry, or whether you are married right now as I speak, consider the fact that you need to have eyes for one. Now, let me introduce to you point number one, the problem with our eyes. The problem with our eyes. And I kind of have it as a little subtitle right underneath point number one, never satisfied. And that is the problem with our eyes. We are never satisfied. We are going to keep looking. We want to have another look. And when it comes down to pornography, that next look or the lingering look could be a look that destroys. Let me give you this principle of this problem with our eyes found in Proverbs 27, verse number 1. We establish this truth with the scripture. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. And there's this relation to hell and how full it is and how it continues to fill up, how destruction is still something that is filling and is a way of life. And just like that, our eyes, they're never satisfied. Our eyes, they want to see more. Our eyes are going to crave and hunger and thirst after those things which never satisfy. And so as we consider this great big problem with our eyeballs, and we call them our God-given eyeballs because God has created us and God has blessed blessed us with the ability to see. And we woke up again with the opportunity to see. And as we consider what we see, we need to realize we need to keep our hearts safe by making sure we are looking on the right things and not on the wrong things. And this really has a lot to do with our topic of the Bible and pornography. If we could just get a hold of guarding our eyes, there would be a lot more victory and a whole lot less defeat. So once again, Proverbs 27 verse 20, hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. Point number one, the problem with our eyes is we're never satisfied. Point number two, the lusting with our eyes. The lusting with our eyes. And the little subtitle, this leads to adultery. When we allow our eyes to lust after someone, it will lead to adultery. And this isn't my teaching. This is the teaching of the Lord Jesus Christ, and that's why I teach it to you today. Notice how Jesus says it in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, and verse 27 and 28. Jesus says, "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery." Let me stop right there and say, that's good, right? To teach you shouldn't commit adultery. Adultery is that physical action with another person outside of marriage. Okay, so it's not two that have gotten married coming together in a physical relationship. It's I am one in marriage, but I decide to go after somebody else. That's adultery. Okay, so Jesus says, "Ye have heard that it was said of them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery." Verse 28, "But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." It does matter what goes on in your heart. It does matter what choices you make within. It does matter what you look at. According to the verse of Jesus' words, you need to watch what you look at and say, if it is lustful, if it is wrong, if it is not according to a good relationship with my spouse, I need to choose against it. And we take the words of Jesus Christ, and maybe you're mind blown. Maybe you're like, I didn't even know that Jesus said that. I didn't know that was a thing, but let's look at it again. "But I say unto you," Jesus' words, "that whosoever looketh on a woman," it doesn't even specify what type of woman, aside from the fact that we understand it's someone outside of the marriage bed. "But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." So this isn't just looking at a woman in a magazine, not just looking at a woman on a video, that's included. It could be anybody on the street, anywhere, and you let your heart look at her with lustful intentions. Jesus said, hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And listen, ladies, that's why some people would emphasize here, it does matter how you dress. It does matter how you draw attention to yourself. You can do so in an elegant way that promotes womanhood and promotes you to be a lady of God, a godly lady, or you could dress and act in such a way and speak in such a way that causes a man to look upon you with these eyes of adultery, and you together with that person hath committed adultery. I mean, we are talking about Jesus' words that say that whosoever, looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Okay, so Jesus is saying, you've heard it said of old time. It's wrong to commit adultery. Jesus is saying, if you looked at somebody the way you shouldn't, you've committed adultery already in your heart. And really, Jesus is just attacking the heart of man and teaching us once again that we don't even have to do the physical act to be guilty of the said action within our hearts. And this brings up that topic of adultery so heavily that is I'm not saying it's made fun of in our day, but it's taken lightly. I mean, people are encouraging adultery within their own marriages, to kind of fulfill their own lust. And there have been stories of, a man wanting to, commit adultery because he wants to fulfill his own lustful nature. And so he encourages his wife to go out on him with another man, encouraging it. But then when the action happens, the jealousy sets in. Well, duh. I mean, God didn't create your marriage relationship to have any outside influences physically. He created it one man, one woman together, and therefore eyes for only one. Now, we're speaking Bible. We're teaching Bible, and I want you to understand what God says because I want you to have a happy, healthy life, and I want you to honor God with your life. And therefore, I bring up Proverbs chapter 6 and verse number 32. But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. Mind blown again. I mean, the Bible brings conviction, okay? I am not trying to land blast you. I'm just trying to curve what is becoming a huge detriment to our society where people feel they can do whatever they want and get away with it. This happened in the Bible. In fact, there's a whole book about it. It's called the book of Judges. And kind of the theme verse that you find pop out through that book is, every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And there you go. There's the eyes again. I wish I had that verse ready for you. I'd put it up there. But the idea is I've got my own understanding. I'll do things however I want to. And it goes along with this verse. It only brings destruction. Again, Proverbs 6:32, but whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding. He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. I mean, you're bringing destruction into your own life by going after someone that God did not create for you. Before marriage, it's called fornication. After marriage, it's called adultery. Both things are wrong. So number one, we have a problem. Our eyes are never satisfied. Number two, we have the lusting with our eyes that can lead to adultery. We need to have eyes for only one, and that takes care of that problem, and it takes care of that lusting when we commit to having eyes for only one, which leads to point number three. Point number three is the covenant with our eyes. And if you look at that little subtitle, it kind of gives you the definition of the word covenant. It is a formal, solemn, and binding agreement. A formal, solemn, and binding agreement is a covenant. Now, in our last video, we talked about making marriage great again. And there's that great covenant between a man and a woman that comes together in holy matrimony. We call it marriage. Well, there's a covenant that you can make well before marriage, and you ought to make it well before marriage. I'm talking about well before you ever get involved in pornography. If you're listening to this and you've had great victory in your life, praise the Lord. Make a covenant with your eyes. Make a formal, solemn, binding agreement that you're not going to look at some things you should not look at, and you're going to have eyes for only one. Now, here's the verse. It's Job 31, verse number 1. The Bible principle from another person's perspective on how he had help. And by the way, Job was noted to be the righteous man in his day. I made a covenant with mine eyes, Job said. Why then should I look upon a maid? Okay, so the temptation is going to come. The temptation to look at a maid, at someone that is not yours, at someone that would be classified in Job's life, this is not my wife, okay? If it's not my wife, if she's not mine, I shouldn't be looking at her. I shouldn't be lusting after her. I've made a covenant, which leads me to thought letter A. The covenant with our eyes is a stand against our own sin problem, our own lust problem. A covenant, again, is a formal, solemn, and binding agreement. A covenant with our eyes is a stand against our own sin or lust problem. And Job, being a righteous man, being somebody who loved the Lord and was keeping the way of God in his day, he is somebody that understood the battle is real. I have a problem. My eyes are never satisfied. I have a problem, and I lust with mine eyes, and it can lead to adultery. Because of that problem, because of that lust, I have made a covenant with my eyes. Okay, I've made this formal, binding agreement. Why then should I look upon a maid? Which leads to letter B, is the covenant with our eyes is a stand for truly loving our spouse the way that God intends. Okay, Job said it like this: why then should I think upon a maid? Okay, if I've made a covenant with mine eyes, okay, I made a formal, binding agreement, why then should I look upon a maid? Okay, he is saying, I want to love my wife, and I want to stand against my own lust problem, stand against my sin, so I'm making this agreement with myself. I'm just not going to think upon a maid. I'm not going to think upon a maid. And sometimes why we look upon things that we should not is because we are already thinking upon things we shouldn't, or when we catch a look of something, our response is horrible, and then we choose to think, we choose to dwell upon that which we should not, and therefore no victory. Think about the verse again. I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? You and I need to make a covenant. Now, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, okay? Whether you are a male or a female, it doesn't matter. You need to make a covenant. I am going to save my eyes for the right one. I'm going to have eyes for one, and I'm going to let my eyes look right on. I'm going to make the right decision today to say my eyes are looking correctly. They're looking rightly. They're looking in the right direction, not in the wrong direction. And therefore, I bring up the verses to you that I used at the very beginning of this message. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 25, 26, 27. Let thine eyes look right on, and let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Okay, you got some blinders on, all right? Look in the right direction. Then that leads to verse 26. You ponder the path of your feet. Okay, if I look towards the things I should not, I'm going to go the wrong way. But if I ponder the path of my feet, and let all thy ways be established. Verse 27, turn not to the right hand nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil. If we live with this Bible principle in mind, okay, I'm looking in the right direction. Therefore, I'm pondering the path of my feet, and I'm going in the right direction. I'm going to literally remove myself from the position and the place of evil, and therefore, I'm going to have great victory. And so again, the challenge is eyes for one. Let thine eyes look right on. Preacher, I don't know who I'm going to marry. That's okay. You don't have to know what she looks like or what he looks like. You don't have to know what your future is going to be, but you can make your decision today. I'm going to have a protection, a guard, safeguards set up so that I don't look in the wrong direction, so that I won't go in the wrong direction. How many young people have made a huge mistake in life because they let their mind think on something, they let their eyes look in some direction that ultimately would lead them down the wrong direction, and now they're having a hard time getting back to where they need to be. You don't have to be that person. You don't have to be that young man or that young woman. You don't have to be that aged man or aged woman that makes the wrong decision. You can start by today making the right decision, a pattern of good works for the glory of God. So as we consider this message today, you are involved with me in a series called The Bible and Pornography, Eyes for One. Our next message is going to be huge. We're calling it the need for accountability. The need for accountability. And you're going to find that there is safety in having a friend who loves you and loves you doing right. You need somebody who's going to help hold you accountable. It's going to help you live in the victory that is found in and through Jesus Christ. My friend, thank you for watching this video. God bless you, and may you live in victory instead of defeat.